Can you use an air fryer in an RV? Yes, yes you can, and yes you should. Welcome to Irene Iron Travels. My name is Chris, and today we're going to talk about different kinds of air fryers, what you can cook in air fryers, how much power they use, including on battery, and even some cons of the air fryer. So let's get into it. Let's start out talking about the two main types of air fryers. There's the basket style and there's the oven style. The oven style is much larger, much more expensive. It has different multi-functions for cooking. It has different level tiers for cooking, and it takes up a lot of space, but it could be really great if you have a large family or you just want to cook a lot of food at one time for any given reason. The oven style is definitely a sexy type of an air fryer, and someday I hope to have one, but we don't have that yet. Right now we have the basket style. The basket style is much smaller, much more compact, much more affordable, and it holds a lot less, as you can imagine, because it's a single basket. The basket style air fryer can range quite a bit in size and capacity, down from 1 quart all the way up to 10 quarts. And we have the 5.8 size, which is a decent size for us and our size rig. We have the square shaped basket, which is something I definitely want to point out, that this is a square. You'll also find the basket in circle shapes, and I think that the square is much more advantageous for getting more surface level in a single layer of food, which means you can fit more into it. So I opt for the square, but that could be a personal preference. And just look at the footprint of this thing. It is very small compared to the oven style. However, it still does take up quite a bit of space. So depending on how much space you have to store it and to countertop it, you really need to do some research on what size might be appropriate for you. And we are going to spend a little bit more time talking on the basket style because that's what we have. As I mentioned, it's a 5.8 quart and it has all sorts of different features. This happens to be the wireless version, so we have an app on our phone that we can turn it on and do preheating or be alerted when our food is fully cooked, even if we're outside hanging out, which is a nice feature. I don't use it all the time, but it's really nice to know that I could, should I want to. Aside from that, it does have some preset functions, and it does have some other preset functions over here, but honestly, I really just use it manually. I set the temperature, I set the time, and that's about it for me. The temperatures can vary from each model and each manufacturer. Ours ranges from 170 Fahrenheit being the lowest temperature, and then it goes all the way up to 400 degrees. And again, I personally use it in the 350 degrees to 400 degrees range. That's my favorite. So let's talk about that power, because I know that's the burning question, and it is the ultimate question for, can I run an air fryer in my RV? So with the power, these will typically run anywhere from 1,000 watts on the small devices up to 1,800 watts on the larger devices. And this one specifically falls at like 1,700 watts. So this is on the larger side. And even when you're plugged into shore power at a campground, that's a considerable amount of power, especially if you're running off 30 amp, which we are. That can draw 15 amps on the high end of the wattage scale. So that means you can only run 2 devices while you're plugged in, this being one of them. And then, as if that's not confusing enough, you need to consider how the outlets are set up in your kitchen, because all of our kitchen outlets, they happen to be on the same 15 amp breaker. So I can't run my induction and my air fryer while they're both plugged into the kitchen. I can run them at the same time if I split that up and put them on 2 different breakers. So what I have to do as my workaround is I need to unplug my microwave, and then I run an extension cord to my air fryer, which I usually have sitting right here, and I run my air fryer through the microwave outlet at the same time that my induction stovetop runs through its own outlet. That way, I'm easily able to run 2 kitchen appliances that are both high powered at the same time while parked at an RV park. What happens if you're not at an RV park and you're out boondocking? Well, we do this all the time and we still can run it on its own, but you have to pay attention to your inverter and how much power can your inverter process at any given time. We have a 2400 watt inverter and we are able to run the air fryer on its own, no problem. And we have 810 amp hours of Battleborn batteries, so we definitely have the power to power it. And speaking of, Battleborn is running some great Thanksgiving sales right now, running them all week long through Thanksgiving until Cyber Monday. So check that out. If you're in the need, they can hook you up. So when we're out boondocking, sometimes we'll lighten the electricity load by still using our air fryer, and then as our secondary source of cooking, we'll use either the propane or the grill outside so that we can still be cooking at the same time, even though we can only run one appliance at a time. So now that all the tech stuff is over, let's get into the really good stuff of what can you actually cook in the air fryer. This is actually my favorite topic about the entire series today, is what can you cook in it, because we love cooking, we love eating. So our favorite things to cook in the air fryer are proteins and vegetables. Very, very exciting, but I love to do protein in there. I like to do chicken thighs, chicken tenders, you can do meatballs, you can do bacon, you can do coconut shrimp, you can do scallops, you can do all sorts of proteins. Some people even do pork chops and steak in there, believe it or not. The reason why I love cooking proteins in it so much is several reasons actually. One, it keeps the kitchen very cool. It keeps the kitchen very clean. You don't have heat going out, you don't have splatter going out because you don't even need to use any grease for frying or any oils. So it's clean, it keeps the kitchen cool, and it's very fast. So when I'm cooking chicken thighs, which is something I cook in there often, I don't even preheat the air fryer at all. I skip that step. I put my thighs directly in the basket, and I can usually fit a full pound of thighs in here very easily. I do skinless, boneless. I season them directly in here. I spray it with a little bit of avocado spray. I put it in for 390 degrees, 12 minutes. And 12 minutes is sometimes not even long enough to preheat an outdoor grill, depending on how cold it is out there and the wind conditions and all of that. So if we're feeling really lazy, we'll say, well, let's just do air fryer chicken because it's super quick, it's super easy, it cooks itself, you don't have to monitor it, you set it, you forget it. Next, we'll talk about the vegetables because vegetables are in here all day long. I'm telling you, I run this air fryer at least once a day, sometimes 4 times a day, and vegetables are very commonly in here. I use it as a roaster, and I'll do the same thing where I'll put quick cooking vegetables like green beans or broccoli or cauliflower in the basket, no preheating, spritz it with some oil, salt and pepper, 400 degrees, 7 minutes, it's done. There are plenty of other vegetables that you can put in here as well. Potatoes, I do every day for Aaron's breakfast. I make him little breakfast potatoes. Those take longer, they take 20 minutes. And that's with me cutting the potatoes quite small. If you were to do French fries or large wedges, you would be even longer than that. Some other long cooking vegetables that I like to do in here are squashes, butternut squash, acorn squash, spaghetti squash. Those roast in here and it's done in like 25 minutes, which is much quicker than a traditional oven that can take up to 45 minutes. So you're saving time and you're saving a lot of resources by using your air fryer. Another thing that I like to do in the air fryer is to do a single meal in one basket. So I'll take a couple of thighs, I'll pop them in there for 5 minutes to get them started, and then once they're about 5 minutes in, I'll open the basket, I'll fill the remaining space with some quick cooking vegetables like the green beans or the snap peas or the broccoli. I'll put that in there and then let it run for another 7 minutes. So in total, it's a 12-minute run and I get a full basket meal. And I did do an episode on this on Healthy RV Living. It was a complete meal in an air fryer, and I think on that episode I did cod. So you can cook fish in there, and it's just the best for easy, quick lunches when you don't want to take time and make a 30-minute meal. It takes 12 minutes, and like I said, the best part is you can set it and you can sit down and work while it's cooking for you. So while proteins and vegetables are the bulk of how we personally use it, that's just scratching the surface on how you could use it. You could use it for hundreds of food. I would say the next thing that we do use it for is as a toaster. So I do use it for toasting bread slices. I use it for English muffins and for bagels. It's a great toaster. Aside from that, you could use it for reheating things. Like if you have some, more indulgent food that you want to reheat and make it crispy. You can put pizza in there and get a nice crispy crust. You could put leftover French fries from a restaurant and get them nice and crispy. So it's basically taking your microwave and replacing it. And not only is it replacing it, it's making it better because it's not gonna be soggy, it's gonna be crispy. You could also use the air fryer for baking and desserts. Again, I'm not a baker and I don't bake desserts, but you could do it. If that's your style and that's your jam, you could do all of that in the air fryer. The big oven style air fryers, you can even put entire turkeys in, believe it or not, which I actually said to Erin, I wish I had that Breville right now so I could fit a 14-pound bird in it this week for Thanksgiving. So with all of this magic that the air fryer is, there has to be some con to it, right? I mean, it can't always be the best and have no cons to come along. And there certainly are a couple of cons with the air fryer. Number one, I would say, is space and storage. And as I mentioned, ours is, it's not a huge air fryer, but it's still a considerable amount of space, especially on travel day, because we don't just let it sit here when we travel. This is part of our setup. So when we are traveling, I actually store it right down here. I have a nice big cabinet, and I'll have this entire area cleaned out. Right now you see a bunch of like bubbly water because I load bubbly water in as part of our setup. It's a process, right? We all have a little bit of a process for setting up, but the bottom line is it takes this entire area for storage when it's not on the countertop. And that's a lot of space. And that's just a small 5.8 quart. Like imagine if you had one of the big oven styles, that would take the entire cabinet, the whole thing. So it's definitely like, well, what are your priorities with cooking and how often are you going to use it? Because for us, this is a heck yes worth the space, but at the same time, it comes with a space cost. Second is the money. The price of them, they can be expensive. This size, you're looking at around $100, give or take, depending on the brand, depending if you can find sales, all of that. And then the nice oven styles, I call those the Cadillac version, not only because it's like you can do everything with it, but it costs a little bit more. Those can be a few $100s. And make sure you're getting a good brand so that it's an investment where the money that you put into it is actually going to last you a considerable amount of time. And our final con is power usage. Now, I did go over how much power it uses. Even while plugged in to an RV park or shore power of any sort, it takes a lot of power. And it's even more taxing if you're off-grid and you're not plugged in and you're strictly relying on your batteries and possibly solar to help that electric system rejuvenate. And luckily for us, we are brand partners with Battleborn batteries. And so we do have a really awesome setup that allows us to live off-grid like a normal household. And I can't stress how important and how great that feels to be in this RV lifestyle, to be able to run things and work and live and have comforts of a house without sitting and thinking about it every single day and micromanaging that power usage. So like I said before, they are running some deals. Battleborn Battery is running some really great Thanksgiving specials, some Black Friday promos. Check out the links below and see if there's anything that you can do to beef up your system so that you can run some really great appliances in your kitchen. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that I've inspired you to dabble into the almighty air fryer, which happens to be my all-time favorite kitchen appliance for the RV.